All right, I've got 3:30 p.m. Adelaide time, so we'll kick off. Yeah, just super excited to host another webinar. So joining us today is Rob Morledge, someone who's really built a career around prioritising programming for on-field performance. Rob studied in the UK. He's got a master's at S&C at Coventry University, and has coached with Derby FC as well. He's spent significant time across Asia, working closely with teams and athletes. And along the way, he's built a strong online following with over 10,000 Instagram followers, tuning in for his insights and all of his knowledge that he's posting on there. He's now with Bangkok FC as the head of high performance. And yeah, just super excited to hear his perspective and share some information with us today. And yeah, one of those little get 1% better every day type days now. So I'm about to go to school myself and learn some things. I hope everyone else is as well who's listening in. So yeah, Rob, please take it away. Excited to have you.
Yep. Thank you very much for joining on. Yeah, so thanks for introducing me. I think a big part of my philosophy has been working in Southeast Asia and places that probably don't have tons of equipment, the right schedule and lots going off. So my kind of job has been to maximize what I have, but in doing that, I've also found some amazing performance enhancements by just doing the basics really well, and trying to specify as much as I can in a training. So I've to start off, I've underlined preparation, and I've underlined football because that's what it is. It's preparation for football. And the one thing that I wanted to get across in this webinar is, you know, when people think about strength and conditioning, they think about dumbbells and trap bars and barbells and chasing numbers like that. And that's something that I really have come away from. And then you've also seen that I've put specificity, transfer and individualization. And this really does drive performance on the pitch. And we're not chasing numbers in the weight room. So I'm just going to go through, this is some of the work that I've been doing using the force plates, which actually when I got to Jakarta, I actually paid for the plates myself because I wanted to do things properly. And I'm so glad it did because it really, really helped the way I programmed for my athletes. So this was, I'm going to talk about like different kind of profiles that I've been working with, but I've got an academy guy here who was 19, and we can see that a really nice improvement in his jump and a really nice improvement in his RSI, so his reactive strength and his explosive strength. So 19 years old, he got 9.7 meters per second, so he's fast. And then I've got an experienced midfielder, 34. He was Polish, played in the top Polish league, box-to-box midfielder. He was someone totally different profile. And what we did is we chased RSI with this guy, and I'll tell you why later. And then athlete 3, early 20s, kind of a bit more experience, but again, another really different profile. He was a wing back, and I'm going to go through his GPS in a second, but again, some really nice improvements across RSI, jump height, and also braking forces as well, which I'll come on to in a second. So I asked a few of the managers that I've been working with, what is the primary goal of a physical preparation program in football? And I'll give you a second to read that, but pretty much all of them mentioned the game model. All of them want them available, they want injury risk, and they want them high intensity actions all the way to the last 30 minutes. So I can see nowhere that says I want them to be able to lift 120 kg of a back squat. So it was all about, nowadays, it's all about pressing. Can you win the ball back as fast as you can? I worked with a coach who was big on counter-attacking. So low block, and then as soon as that ball goes, can you sprint and get forward? And we know that that's how goals are scored. So how do we achieve this? How do we make sure that the coach's game model is working and the players can do it? So structured and systemized training that replicates the demands of the game, but prioritizes individualization. We must work backwards from the goal. I'm going to talk about this in a second. And the reason why we're here today is we must have a monitoring program. There's no point guessing. There's no point in throwing exercises in and not knowing if it's working or not, which is where the force plates have really helped me. So this was the wing back that I was talking about earlier on, and I just put together basically his GPS. And obviously starting with the top distance first, you can see that he's done 10.7K. This is in games last season. So things that stand out to me in his top line: 679 meters of high speed running, 326 meters of sprint distance. Relative would be 70% over his maximum speed, would be high speed running, 399, and relative sprint distance 162. So anything above 85% of his sprint distance. And then you're going on to the accelerations and decelerations, which we know are really neuromuscular fatiguing. So we're looking at 137 in one game, 129 in another game. So when we come into how do we get our athletes better, we have to work back from the physical performance that they find themselves on the pitch, and this is it. So I just wanted to throw up a few little papers here. We know already that goals and important actions of football are normally from some kind of sprint, some kind of change of direction, some kind of explosive movement. So I just wanted to put some papers up there just to remind ourselves of that. And then here's where I really want to start to put my philosophy together and what's really helped me. And specificity is king. The SAID principle: specific adaptation to imposed demands. And we really must have this in the back of our head when it comes to strength and conditioning. You know, many people start from we need to get them in the gym, we need to be squatting, RDLing. But no, what do we need to be doing? The guys need to be fast. They need to be able to press hard. They need to be able to recover. They need to be strong in the positions like sprinting. I love, this is probably, out of any slide that I've done, this is probably my most favorite. So anyone who's on the call who knows me knows I absolutely love Rocky. And every time I watch Rocky 4, it always gets better. So strength is an important biomotor ability and underpins speed, power, and endurance, but it isn't exclusive to a barbell or a dumbbell. Strength is better defined as the ability of the neuromuscular system to produce force against an external resistance. So I've got Rocky here, who's pulling a sled in the snow, and I've got Drago, who's doing, I think he's doing a clean and is about to do a push press or a jerk. They're both an external resistance, and for me, it doesn't really matter what they're doing as long as it's specific to the sport. Okay, so Rocky and Drago are both getting some kind of adaptation. Whether it's specific to the sport, you'd have to argue about that, but it doesn't always need to be in the gym. So we know that players need to be able to produce large relative forces and do it in a minimal time frame: sprinting, change of direction, decelerating. And I've just mentioned here some of the key factors in producing force and what actually gets guys stronger. And the first one is motor unit recruitment, and it's something called the size principle. So the bigger motor units are always recruited last. However, if you increase the motor unit activation through force, but not solely force, through speed, contraction, then we can actually increase the bigger motor units and get them firing higher. So rather than going into the gym and doing heavy back squats, I'm not saying that's wrong, but I'm saying that for footballers who probably can't handle that kind of load, can we get them doing resisted sprints and get them producing force in positions that they're actually going to find on the pitch? I mentioned stretch shortening cycle is another way that increases maximum strength. Okay, well, jumps, bounce, hops, skips, these are all going to contribute to athletic performance, but also strength as well. And the last one is super important: neuromuscular inhibition. So we have protective mechanisms from the Golgi tendon organ that's going to stop us from kind of getting into positions, and we have to inhibit that. But we also have to inhibit that in the right positions that we're trying to find. So things like resisted sprints, resisted change of direction movements. That's going to help the players when they come onto the pitch or on the training pitch or on the training field, going to feel much better in the positions that they find in. So how can we make play stronger whilst making the training adaptation specific to speed or change of direction? So I mentioned specificity earlier on, and I mentioned kind of, okay, we need to get guys stronger, but we're playing football. Okay, so how can we do that by the kind of the most efficient and best way to do that. And I put up a little slide from Verkhoshansky in special strength training where the guys are doing some wall drills, but obviously they didn't have weights or bands back then, so they've got guys basically sat on top of each other to add resistance. Okay, doesn't have to be a dumbbell or a barbell. So the two things that I've been using in my programming is the dynamic correspondence and the bondage exercise classification. So just to go through dynamic correspondence, these things that I've really used in my programming, to one, get strength, but two, make it specific. So I've got number one, amplitude and direction of movement. Is the hip and knee angles similar to that of a sprint acceleration? Accentuation of force reduction, rate and time of maximum force reduction, regime of muscular work. So regime of muscular work, things like wall drills and sled pushers are all kind of making the body move in how it would do in a sprint, but they're adding resistance, so they're also getting stronger as well. Dynamics of effort, number 5, training intensity and intent. Intent is so important. So when you've got guys on the grass, straight away it's going to drive intent because they're on the grass, they've got the boots on, put some hurdles down, get some bands out, drive intent. And when you're doing it in a group, this will certainly drive that, and I think bring about some excellent adaptations. And the second one is Bondarchuk's exercise classification system. And this will be starting off with our general exercises and then gradually getting more and more specific with our special prep and special development exercises. So this, I actually got this from Sam Portland, my mentor's book, and he's put the speed model into an exercise classification. So you can see there that right at the bottom, we've got general prep, which is just stuff like dynamic mobility, coordination. We go a little bit higher up the classification system and we start to get wall drills and some strength resistance. And then we go even more higher and we start to get loaded sprints. And then we go all the way up to the competition exercise, which in football will be change of direction, tactical gameplay. Okay, so already now we're starting to specify what we want out of our drills. Okay, and this should kind of come together in a few slides. And what I really love about this slide is Sam put together the two kind of I suppose, frameworks to put into your programming in football. And we've got dynamic correspondence down one side, and we've got the Bondarchuk classification system up on the other side. And that kind of gives us general to specific. So we start off with that dynamic movement, and then we gradually, as we go further and further, we get wall drills and loaded sprints, and then the competition exercise will be sprinting. And then once we know what kind of adaptations we're trying to drive, you can see in the exercises below here, we've got starting strength, which is perfect for acceleration. And we've got the exercises that we use for here. We've got speed strength, which is like that second, third, and fourth step. What exercises can we use to improve that? And then we've got reactive strength. So your stuff like your pogos, your bounding. And then your special strength, which is where we're trying to mimic the positions that we're finding in sprinting or football. And once we've got those kind of the idea exercises, then we're going to put it into the program. So we know that sprinting, we need it in football. We know it always leads to an important action. Okay, so sprinting is a skill. And why the warm-up is a perfect place for developing general and specific speed. So one of the main things that I've experienced in Southeast Asia is you can't train at like 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. that you do in Europe. It's just way too hot. So your only kind of other option is to train at like 7 in the morning, which is what we're doing at the moment, or train at 4 o'clock at night. So you don't have that luxury of coming in, having breakfast, training, then having dinner, and then going to the gym. So you're like physically prepared to do that. We have to train in a short hour because of the heat, and then the athletes go home. So we don't have that luxury of like letting them eat and rest and then taking them to the gym to kind of lift. So what I'm going to go on to is how can we make guys strong in the warm-up, but also specific. Okay? So why the warm-up? New skills are best learned when athletes are rested, when they are, my screen, I can't see that. And they're capable of concentrating on the task when fatigue will not impede learning. So A speed-based warm-up will also prepare them for the technical-based conditioning, such as position-specific rondos and small side of game. So the warm-up should always match what you're going into. However, you should also have that physical preparation loading in mind as well. So this is a 4-day microcycle that I like to use, and it's you can kind of see this. This is quite typical, whether in Europe or Southeast Asia. But our match day -4 and our match day -3s are days where we're going to develop and load the athletes. But it's important to have a theme. So you see, on match day -4, my theme is horizontal force, starting strength. It's acceleration, yeah, long ground contact times. But on the Wednesday, so sorry, go back to the match day -4. This is when the coach is going to be doing small-sided games, small spaces, rondos. It's lots of acceleration, deceleration. So let's make sure that the warm-up is preparing them for that. And on the match day -3, where they tend to go into more bigger size games, medium-sized games, and 11v11s, okay, well, they're going to be doing much more speed work. So I want to go reactive. I want to go pogos. I want to go bounds. I want to get them really bouncy, and I want to focus on that reactive strength index. Okay, so I've got 2 clear themes and 2 clear training adaptations that I'm chasing. And then just going into a little bit more detail, this will be my match day -4. I've called it intensive. It's a push and stop. Okay, so we can see that. And what I found in previous places is that the activation before you go out onto the pitch is different to the activation, and the activation is different to the technical demands. No, it should all match together. Everything should all blend into one program. So you can see that in my special strength, I will use sled pushes in the warm-up. I'll use wall drills because we're working on acceleration. And then in the dynamics, when we go outside, I'm going to be doing my A drills, my skips, my bounds are getting nice and reactive. And then because I want to work on starting strength, I'm going to work on some little half kneeling projections and some 5-meter accelerations. Okay. And then that's when they're going into their 5v5s and the 4v4s. So it really, really matches up. And then going into that gym work, because we're going to do like a push and starting strength day, that's when I'll go quite knee dominant and get them moving through a full range of motion. You can see there that I've just got a knee dominant choice. It might be a trap bar deadlift. And you can see very, very general. Okay. However, 20% general, 80% special strength and specificity. That's how I like to go with things. And you can see that that's my emphasis. And on match day -3, so this one has a much more high complexity in terms of the coach is trying to put his pressing ideas along, his tactical kind of ideas. So, putting in complex and heavy lifts, like the guys are tired and they need to be able to concentrate for that kind of tactical work. So this is where I'll go lighter weights. You can see that in my special prep before I go out onto the grass. Pogos, hurdle jumps, drop jumps, reactive strength, yeah, kettlebell swings, med ball, granny toss, lighter weight, but explosive and more reactive. And then we'll go into our speed work because we're going to be doing 11v11. The guys are going to need to sprint, and it's where I'm going to get my speed work. So I'm going to do my cycling drills, my dribbles, and my B skips. And then I'll put them into some long accelerations where they build up from the byline to the halfway line. But I would never ask them to go 100%. It's always gradually just build that speed up and then hit a 10-meter block of 75, 80, or 85%. And that's where we're going to get a load from. But again, it's reactive strength. Okay. And then as you see, we're going to go into our big possessions, our 11v11s, and the gym stuff, much more reduced range of motion. The guys are tired. What I might do is get them working those speed strength zones. I've got a barbell step to pull up, a little bit of hamstring and some jumps, but not a lot, because we did a lot of our load the day before of that kind of pushing work. Now I want to kind of work on that reactive strength. Okay. So to finish off, I mentioned like individualization. So his name is Raka. Look at that. 42. He started at 40, and it's 42, 43, and he eventually got 52. I think he got 53 in the end. That was his jump. And his reactive strength also a really good increase. So I want you to show you his program. The most basic program you could write. dumbbell split squats, dumbbell hip thrusts, calf raises, audio. This guy's an academy guy, so I didn't want to load him up on heavy squats and trap bar deadlifts and power cleans and stuff like that. He's getting most of his specificity, he's getting most of his force production and his specificity from the warm-up that I'm giving him. This is literally just general tolerance, just to make sure that he's not getting injured and we're kind of covering all bases. And by the way, when I say dumbbell hip thrust, he's doing a 20 kg dumbbell RDL, he's doing 215 kgs. And the reason why I'm giving him that weight is because his training age is really low. Like when I first come to him, I didn't know how to squat, I didn't know how to RDL. So I knew that just giving him that really little bit of kind of basic work was enough to just make him gradually get better without him getting injured, and so he can still perform on the pitch. However, what I know is that we had tons of specificity in that warm-up, and he was producing force in other ways. Okay, so you probably look at his jump performance and think this guy's been lifting super heavy. No, he's not. He's been doing split squat, goblet squats at 20 kg, but his counter movement jump has gone up that much. So the reason why this is so important is maybe I could have guessed and put him on some heavy back squats, but I didn't need to because I saw he was getting better. I saw he was getting better with 20 kg goblet squats. I didn't need to push him anymore or make him more fatigued with heavy lifts. So it's all about, okay, what is the data showing me? Do I need to push, or do I need to put, or do I need to just continue on that nice systematic progression? And that's exactly what he's done here. All right, so the next one, the 34-year-old, I don't want to be lifting him heavy. He's got 40, 50 games to go through in Indonesia. We're traveling hours and hours on the flight. He's 34. He's got an excellent right foot. His assists, he's great with his assists. So I'm not bothered about what numbers he's chasing on the pitch. But what I do know is Indonesia has a lot of transitions, box to box, box to box, box to box. I'm not too bothered about his explosive strength. I'm more bothered about his reactive strength because he's covering a lot of ground in the game. I need him to be efficient. So what we worked on in this program, you can see that because he's 34, I know he's got a really good training age from the guys that he worked with in Poland. I put him onto a dumbbell split squat because he had a bit of a quad issue. And I put him onto some sprinter step-up jumps, really reactive, not really kind of small range of motion, just popping off the box. And then if you look at his session 2, his kind of reactive stuff, his explosive strength, lateral pogos, dumbbell jumps, skater throws, nothing heavy or anything like that. But that was my focus because I wanted him to increase that reactive strength, plus all the pogos and special strength in the warm-ups. His RSI has gone up a lot, and for a 34-year-old, that's amazing. It really is. Right, wing back is when I got to Indonesia, he could not defend. So when as a wing back, you have to get up to the ball and stop really fast. He would always get too close to the ball, put his brakes on, and the player would just go past him because he couldn't stop. Normally, and I would say that's like a technical issue. You know, you need to be able to stop before you get to the ball. But then I looked at his braking force compared to the rest of the squad using the software that Hawkins Dynamics gives me, and it was much lower than the whole squad. So you can see that his braking force over the time that we kind of put this program in is really increased. But along with that, also look at his jump height and his RSI. And if I go to his program, well, the first, and my main priority was his altitude landings. So I put in altitude landings, and you can see that has made a really big difference. That was my emphasis. And then it wasn't as basic as the 19-year-old academy because he had a bit of a better training age, and I looked at his body and I could tell he'd been training. So the other kind of stuff was banded hip flexion, because this is the guy who was doing 600 meters of high speed running and 300 meters of sprint distance. His hips need to be strong. We know that top speed and any kind of pro sprinter has very strong hip flexors. So hip flexion, calf work, which is kind of on the wall in a specific running position, and then just some general tolerance work. And then again, coming down to his reactive force work, or reactive strength, extensive pogos, so just working at 70%, dumbbell jumps, double broad jump, and a med ball skater. Nothing complex, just really simple stuff. And again, look at the improvements that it made. But for me, that comes from making sure that in the warm-up, you've got a ton of specificity. And that's that.
That was awesome. I just love when people share their programming insights. You can stop your share now if you want to.
Yeah, I forgot to say you can see yourself. Let me see.
Okay. Yeah. I've got that mirror effect. No, I absolutely love when people share kind of their programming insights. Right, you get. It's such a great marry between like what the results are actually saying and then how you program someone and kind of join those two together. I think a lot of people have a fear of sharing what they do, and to be able to see just some small changes in programming. And like you said, these guys are like 12 kg dumbbell or kettlebell, split squats and stuff like that. The programming doesn't have to be, let's get, 200 kilos on your back. It can be just specific set principle, and then get after it. And I just want to go back through the slides and just read like over and over again and just see where it's at. So, which I'll do. But then we'll also share that. So if anyone has any questions, please pop them in the chat. But you can also, find Rob as well. Rob, do you want to just share your handle quickly so we can find you?
Yep. So Instagram. You're talking about how they can reach out to me, right?
Yeah.
I tend to use Instagram. So my Rob Morledge, you'll find me on Instagram. But yeah, I can share that in the chat as well. So no worries.
That'd be great. Awesome. Yeah, share in the chat. What I love is just being able to see the differences from different ages as well. Are you finding is training age one of the biggest factors for you? That changes per person. Like, what's like the major factor that changes your programming, I guess?
Yeah, do you know what? Kind of working in these areas. We last year in Jakarta, we had obviously the local Indonesians who haven't been exposed to that academy that you might find in Australia or Europe. So those guys, when you come in, when I first got there, they were doing like back squats at 60 kg because they'd seen it on Instagram or YouTube or something. And they literally went to about 45 degrees. They couldn't get their hips below their ankles and stuff like that. So, and they want to do heavy deadlifts and stuff like this. And then you look at them and you think, well, we may as well just take you back to a goblet squat and improve that first. But the main thing for me is how are they looking on the pitch? Because if they're improving in the gym, but they're also performing very well on the pitch and getting these super high outputs in a match, and they're available, then I'm happy. Because really, like any coach I've worked with, I just want available players. Like I would rather a player go in 90% than 110% and be injured. And I'll be completely honest, I think the player would rather that as well, because I don't want players out on the side for 3 months. And what we've got to remember is we're physical preparation coaches. We're not Olympic weightlifting coaches. We're not strength coaches. So the goal must be football. But what I was going to say was, when I went to Jakarta, we had some Brazilians who were physically just better, but they were also doing crazy like advanced stuff, like crazy hip locks. I won't get into that, but like heavy hip locks and heavy cleans, and the technique was awful. And you're like, mate, you know what? I could literally put you on a block of extensive plyometrics, and I know that will get you better. Do you know what I mean? So it's also a lot of education.
Yeah, for sure. I've got a couple of questions actually. So any considerations you keep in mind during the physical prep for athletes that present with high injury rates from previous data?
Yeah, so you're talking about kind of guys that have previously been injured and then come into the training program, I'm guessing. So one kind of program that I use with my athletes is the 1x20 by Dr. Yesis. I don't know if you've heard of that. So Dr. Yesis worked with Verkhoshansky, and he just believes in robustness. So it's 20 exercises, 20 reps, but just one set of everything. I always put, if I get older guys coming in who are just broken, straight on the 1x20. And that will be literally hip abduction, hip adduction, dorsiflexion, plantar flexion, everything you can think of just in one program, but super light, a lot of variation. And for me, I find that giving athletes lighter weight, but just covering all bases, they need that. It's just a robustness program. But then giving them kind of, heavy trap bar deadlifts and for a 34-year-old athlete, just don't need it. Just really just don't need it.
No, that's great. I think people will definitely have a look at that for sure. And we can post it as well in the chat, or share it later. Someone else has written, like how many like physical fitness trainers or coaches can you use at the club to check the individual programs, to check the gym programs, or is it just you going through and checking the programs and running it?
Yeah, in my experience, it's pretty much just been me when I've been working in Southeast Asia. So it can be hard. What I found in my experience working in these countries is they just get put into circuits. So it'll just be like, oh, you're going to do a circuit, and it'll be like just no specificity at all, completely general, which is probably okay for a little bit of pre-season. But after that, you really need to start to group the athletes up. So what I've done is I group my players up into athletes with a higher training age, and guys who are very good, very strong, but maybe need to increase their reactive strength. So this is another thing that the force plates have really given me, is they've been able to kind of put my athletes into separate programs. So I might have guys who are really force dominant, and these guys really like them heavy trap bar deadlifts because they want to push into the ground. And I'm happy with that. If that's your way of moving, you go and do that. Okay. And I'll give you a little bit of reactive strength for a bit of efficiency. But then I've also got my guys who are them really lean, agile guys, really twitchy, want to bounce across the pitch. So these guys, I'm not going to start lifting them heavy because it's just going to break them. All right, let's kind of prioritize plyometrics, lower kind of loads, and you can use that as your strength. And then I'll have like an academy robustness group. Okay, like the 1x20, and it's like, okay, I've got 3 groups. Are each one of them improving? Are they improving? But am I looking at the force plate data? They're increasing the jump height. They're increasing the RSI. Okay, I'm happy. Do you know what I mean? So if there's only me and everyone's getting better, perfect. And then I might add in a few little changes depending on their injury history.
No, that's great. I love it. It sounds like it's our philosophy, right? Where it's like, do you work on the strengths or work on the weaknesses? And it sounds like you're just trying to work on the strengths. And if they're getting better and they're not injured, and they're on the park, then let's keep going. Last couple of questions for you. From a non-contact injury and training standpoints, like groin strains and balancing rehab, I guess the 1x20 is kind of where you fall on that, or we got some different philosophies as well.
Yeah, I found kind of in these areas you get a lot of long-term athletic groin pain, and they can be out for a long time. So it's just kind of number one, managing their load. So obviously, looking at the GPS, how much are they doing, pulling them out of training a little bit early. But yeah, in terms of I had a guy with a really bad groin issue, and it wasn't about his groin, it was about his core and his glutes and his hip extensors. Yeah, so the 1x20 covers that because there is so much variation, and it really helps bring up the kind of the whole package, if that makes sense.
It does. Yeah, it's awesome. And you're fighting time too, right? Like, as you said, you have that morning window, and you're also, I'm assuming, able to give that to the athlete as well, as like, hey, you can do this in your own time, and you can kind of do this, when you're outside the building at the same time. Another question. Excuse me. Any tips on like change of direction for younger athletes, and what you would implement in the programming there?
Yeah, so I'm big on rhythm and relaxation. So like when people think of change the direction and think, oh, let's go and do some 45-degree cuts as hard as I can. Well, all right, well, let's build some rhythm first. Can you do some shuffling for 20 seconds, just nice and easy, making sure you're finding angles, getting nice and low. Is your body pointing the way that you want to go? And then to kind of add in another dimension to that, can you do lateral skaters and lateral pogos and just bouncing and finding that rhythm? Because you'll find a lot of people can't even do that. They don't know how to disassociate the ankles from their hips and their knees. So like for example, a lot of guys when they go in to do a cut, a 180-degree cut, they can't actually sink into that position and project out. All right, so let's bring it back. Let's do some extensive single leg hops and just get them doing them long ground contact times and just getting used to the body being in them positions, because that's another thing. Okay, let's go and a lot of people put people into intensive plyometrics where it's just move as fast as you can. Well, hang on a minute, you can't even hold yourself in a little single leg squat. Never mind go and cut at 145 degrees as fast as you can. So we've changed the direction to answer your question. Make everything like build a capacity and learn how to move first, and then start to put them into them kind of little 45-degree cuts, but make sure they're doing it properly.
No, I love it. I think, in my time in football, I found a lot of just like the hovering drills, right? Getting low, just that starting
athletic
point
stance.
of like, how do I get into that athletic stance and find that position? Then you kind of build those sequencing after that. It is super important. Plus you get your eye in there too and can see where they're at.
Yeah.
And the last one is more of like just a career kind of question is like, how do you find Southeast Asia in general and the S&C culture there? I actually just got back from a couple-week trip from Indonesia myself. So I've done a lot of Southeast Asia travel myself. And love to hear, how do you find it and the culture there and do you enjoy it and what do you like about it?
I love it because I go in as the head of fitness and I have no one telling me what to do. So in bigger organizations that I experienced, probably at Derby, there was many people who are part of the pie. So you have to kind of, which is good in a way, but also as well, you don't really get to put your full philosophy into certain things. And like I said, somebody does the activation and then you do the warm up and somebody else does that. And it's like, no, I'd rather kind of blend my whole philosophy into one program, which you can see I've done in the slides. Obviously you've got, when I first got to Cambodia, we had no gym. There was chickens running across the pitch and dogs and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? So I think having minimal equipment and guys who have really low training ages, it kind of shows me what you can do with athletes with absolutely nothing. But okay, yes, they're not squatting 100 kilogram, but they're performing on the pitch and they're available. So it kind of really helped with my philosophy about physical preparation.
No, that's awesome. That's it from the questions. Just a huge thank you. We love having you as a customer and love talking to you across the way and learning from you as well. And I'm sure a bunch of people here have also learned from me, as I have too. I can't wait to go back through the slides. And then from a Hawkins standpoint, if you want to get in touch with me or the team, please reach out to the website, www.hawkindynamics.com. Outside of that, thank you again. Can't wait to chat further and pick your brain.
All right, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.